And welcome to Media Mash, our time to expose the most outrageous examples of mainstream media liberal bias. And here to go through this week's material is none other than the president of the Media Research Center. Once again, Brent Bozell in studio tonight.
Hey, how are you? Hey,
all right. Generally, before we get to specific cuts, we did a whole week last week on the media's coverage of Egypt. We see what's happening here tonight in Egypt and watched it all day. Generally speaking, how has the media's coverage been on the Egypt situation?
Generally speaking, not bad, because it's hard news. Whenever you're entrenched in the breaking news, you really can't mess around with it. It's when you get into the soft news, into the analysis, that's where the trouble starts. But I'm telling you, the other media story is the social media. This is the social media may be what is fueling an entire revolution.
This whole new media phenomenon, I mean, and it's obvious people are rejecting the old media guard. You know, I went back and I saw that the New York Times actually in '79 had an editorial about Khomeini that was so off base. It was absurd, as was the Carter administration. But it seems to me that the media has missed the main point about the dangers of the Muslim Brotherhood.
They haven't covered it. They're not on the ground. How many reports have we seen coming out of Iraq in the last couple of years? None. Why? Because nobody's there anymore. So when you're not on the ground covering these things, you don't see them. By the way, this administration's also missed it. I mean, Hillary Clinton just 10 days ago was saying that Egypt was stable. Yeah. So they really don't know what's going on there. They don't.
All right, let's go to Don Rumsfeld. He was on this program. We had him for the full hour. And here is Don Rumsfeld on ABC.
You write in the book, in retrospect, there may have been times more troops could have been useful.
It's possible.
Were you too slow to react to the changing
I don't
situation?
know.
Do you revisit that? Did you say, did that cost lives?
So can you now concede that what Senator McCain said last week was correct, that had you stayed in office, there would have been defeat in Iraq and the surge?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, he, just like his press conference, he just brushes it off, doesn't care. But
what unmitigated audacity, Sean. These same reporters did nothing but bash George Bush over the surge. And I've got film footage of Diane Sawyer dismissing the surge, and now she's passing judgment on Don Rumsfeld over the surge. Anybody, it's a good question. It's a fair question. They're just not the ones to be asking it.
No, it's just like with how can you not inform people what the Muslim Brotherhood, their foundation, their assassinations they've been involved in, their support of terror and jihad? It seems very the modern version of this. All right, let's go to Arianna Huffington. Watch this.
A big payday for Arianna Huffington as AOL becomes the new owner of Huffington Post, the liberal website she created 6 years ago.
It announced today it will pay $315 million for one of the leading news websites. AOL is hoping to pick up Post readers and boost ad revenue. Post founder Arianna Huffington will take control of AOL's editorial content.
Is she going to be reading my instant messages now? Do I have to worry about that?
AOL giving control to Arianna Huffington. How the mighty have fallen. 10 years ago, AOL had 30 million members. They were joining forces with the Time Warner Colossus. 10 years later, they're down to 4 million members, and they're at Motel 6 getting in bed with Arianna. It's a mess of an organization, and they're going to make an even greater mess of it with Arianna. I promise you that.
No, well, it's absurd, which is an absurd amount of money, too. All right, let's go more love for the anointed one, as everyone gets thrills at different parts of their body whenever he speaks, this time at the prayer breakfast. Let's roll tape.
It was brilliant performance. This guy has game. If you want to make a long list, what are all the reasons Barack Obama's favored for being reelected? Forget the Electoral College, forget the unemployment rate and earnings and all that. That performance has a level of sophistication and skill that not one Republican on the field right now can duplicate.
It wasn't that performance, Sean. It was the performance before that, and the one before that, and the one before that, and next week's, and next month's, and the month after that. Have you ever heard them say, that wasn't a good speech he gave? I mean, every speech is the greatest speech ever. Even when he does the State of the Union, which was a flop of a speech, it's the greatest speech ever. I mean, Chris Matthews must be saying, wait a minute, the thrill up my leg, that's my line, not yours.
Well, it seems that he's gone, like, just off the deep end lately. I mean, he's just lost his mind. He wants to fill that void and be the most liberal person he can be.
He's going to capture that Keith Olbermann crown.
All right, now, the other media narrative is, the president now, he's a centrist. He's not left-winger. He's not a socialist. He's not radical. No, the $5 trillion that he's accumulated by the end of this year in debt means nothing. He's a centrist.
The president escalated the war in Afghanistan. He cut corporate tax rates, kept Guantanamo open, didn't push for the public option, now promising to cut taxes even more, fewer regulations for businesses. I mean, I could go on and on. Wouldn't this be a definition of a fairly conservative Democrat, or at least a definition of a centrist?
If that offends me more, or the comparisons to Reagan.
You know, if playing devil's advocate, that's okay. But when you go into a parallel universe, it's not okay. Barack Obama, you know, socially, he's the most pro-abortion, pro-gay rights president in history. He's accumulated more debt than any president from Washington through Reagan combined. On national security, he goes from one end of the globe to the other, apologizing for American exceptionalism. No, he's not a centrist. It doesn't work, but only on that network.
And he's not anywhere near Reagan either.
Which is why, by the way, that fellow on that show left the Democratic Party, as are dozens of others.
All right. Brent, good to see you in studio this week. Appreciate it.